Hello to everyone out there in Facebook land. This is a big day for the AgGrad Live Show. We've decided to get more and more serious about this show and about the content that we provide via Facebook Live. And part of getting more serious is, number one, doing it consistently. We started it a little over a month ago now and have only been able to put out 3 episodes, but we're going to start doing it weekly, every single week, and to try to make things easier on people who have work or school during the day, we're going to try to go later. So we're doing this at 8 p.m. Central Time, and we're going to continue to do so at 8 p.m. Central Time. So hopefully more people can start to join as we make it more of a consistent thing. And along with that, making it more consistent and upgrading the talent, we thought it was absolutely necessary that we have a live broadcast that does not just include me. So I'm really excited about this. I've been doing the Future of Agriculture podcast for almost a year now, and that's really gone well. And there are some stories that don't necessarily fit that podcast because it's all about new technologies and ideas and businesses, but they're really, really cool stories in ag that anyone who's part of the AgGrad community would want to know. And one of the benefits of being live is if you are watching live, we would love for you to participate, for you to introduce yourself, to ask questions. We have today a guest that I think people are going to want to know more about, and that is Natalina Sense. And Natalina is part of the Why I Farm Roadtrip, and she has graduated last year, and since that time gone to over 40 states interviewing farmers about their experiences in farming. So really excited to bring her on, and I'm going to try this out. This is brand new for us, so let me try this out and see if we can bring her onto the show here. All right, here you are, Natalina.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I really, really am excited to share your story because I think you are doing what every college student when they graduate dreams of doing. Like, I just want to graduate, I just want to get in a car, and I want to drive to all 50 states. And of course, I know there's a lot more to it than just that. But why don't you tell us, how did this whole thing, this Why I Farm road trip, how did it all get started?
Yeah, well, I'll try to make a long story short. But I grew up in Iowa, southeast Iowa. My parents didn't farm, but I grew up next to people who farmed and encouraged me and helped me find my passion in agriculture. But I've also always been a little bit creative. And so going into college at Iowa State University, I thought I was going to have to choose between those things. And I thought I was going to be that child that every parent dreads having, that spends 6 years in college getting their undergrad and changes their major 13 times, because I thought I was going to have to choose between being creative and following my passion in agriculture. And it wasn't until I went to an ag business. So ag business is the major that I just picked for my first one, and I figured it'd change. Long story short, it never did. I went to an ag business meeting, and Beck's Hybrids was there introducing themselves with these Why I Farm videos. And they were just 2 to 5 minute videos of farmers explaining why they do what they do. And I saw those videos and I realized, man, these are really creative and they're about agriculture. That's what I want to do. I want to tell the story of agriculture in that way. And so I'm not ashamed to say I stalked Beck's until I was able to get an internship with them. It was a fantastic internship. They have a super, super creative in-house marketing team that does all those videos and way more. And so the summer I was an intern with them, I was able to actually be a part of making one of those Why I Farm videos that originally inspired me, and then also behind the scenes in the Why I Farm music video. And so at the conclusion of that summer, I knew Beck's was a place that I loved. I liked their culture. It was somewhere that I saw myself working for, people that valued those things, that valued telling farmer stories, even though there wasn't really a direct sales benefit to them. And they were super creative and very talented in that way. But I also knew I wasn't quite ready for a cubicle job. I wasn't ready for that sort of commitment, I guess. Although I didn't realize I was signing up for commitment that was way more than that in some ways. But in the back of my mind, I knew that if I accepted a full-time job anywhere right out of college, that I would be giving up some goals. And one of those goals was my goal to travel to all 50 states by the time I was 25. And when I was 21, I realized that I was only halfway through that goal. I'd been to 25 states. And so I was going to have to do something kind of crazy to cross that off the bucket list. And so December before I graduated from Iowa State, I pitched that crazy to Bex. And I'm so thankful that they jumped on this crazy idea, and I've been able to partner with them for the Why I Farm road trip, visiting farmers in all 50 states and honoring them through blogs and photography.
That's so cool. For those of you who just joined us, if you have any questions for Natalina, be sure to type them in the comments below. But she has spent almost the past full year traveling to over 40 states, still lacking some for the Wire Farm road trip. Which ones are you still lacking, Natalina?
Let me check my list here, because some days I don't even know where I'm at.
Oh,
I told
I would have
somebody
thought
today
you
I'm
would
in
like had that
Texas.
like ready to go.
I do have a notebook though. I'd be lost without it. So I have Utah, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming left. So
Oh,
some really big states, lots of miles, but really looking forward to crossing those off the list.
very, very cool. Well, I would have thought you actually did that really strategically. I mean, you should be able to get those done, what, in the next 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah, yeah.
That is
So my
awesome.
goal was to avoid snow and ice, but Mother Nature decided snow in May would be a great thing to have out here. So I didn't quite get that goal accomplished, but I tried to be strategic.
Yeah, well, I don't think you're the only one who's thrown off by the recent weather events. So I take it you've been to like Alaska, Hawaii, all those
Yeah.
states that a lot of us would consider kind of exotic. What has been the most unique ag commodity that you have seen on a farm?
So I've seen all kinds of unique commodities. I mean, sugarcane and crawfish are certainly unique. But there's one moment that really stands out in my mind. And for me, it's just personal. It's not that mushrooms are like that crazy. But I remember when I visited a mushroom farm in New York, I realized like I have taken mushroom farmers for granted my whole entire life. And that is why telling the story of agriculture is important. Um, that I mean, they grow in a way that I've never seen grown. So that was interesting. I guess they are kind of exotic, um, but I remember having to remind myself, like, Natalina, you're doing an interview. You're not on a field trip. Like, just I listened to the audio all over again because I just transcribe all the interviews, and the whole time I was like, "Whoa, cool, awesome!" And then I'd like ask questions that weren't really interview questions. They were just like, "And how does that work? And then what?" Um, so I guess mushroom farming was like really impressive to me.
That would be cool. I've never seen a mushroom farm. We do have a question here from Jennifer Eggers, which is, do you have plans in Oregon yet?
Yeah, so I do have a handful of farmers that have said they're willing to talk to me. Um, I'll try to keep this short and sweet, but the road trip and logistics have been a learning curve. Um, I left my house on May 15th with 3 months of plans in a spreadsheet, and that's not how life on the road trip works. So, yes, I have plans. Will they happen? Not quite sure yet. Time will tell. But if you have farmers to suggest in Oregon, drop me a message, and I'll see what I can do.
Awesome. So I want to know, looking back almost a year ago when you started this, how are you different? How has it sort of changed you and your perspective?
Well, I think this spreadsheet is a good example. Um, I like to have a plan. I would be very disappointed when my plans didn't work out, and I'm still guilty of that today. But I think I missed a lot of fun moments in life because I was so worried about if that was in the agenda or what was coming next, or if I was dressed appropriately for that item on the agenda or whatever. And I've there's no room for any of that on the road trip. And so I feel like personally, I've learned to live in the moment a little bit more. And I'm having so many awesome, like really special interactions with farmers that to just allow yourself to be present and ignore the phone that's blowing up in your pocket and the 600 miles you have to drive that night, and just be there and enjoy it and make the most of it because it's going to be gone. And that sounds really cliche, but it's something I definitely needed to learn.
Has it changed your career goals at all now that you've been able to see so much in such a short period of time?
Yeah, I said I was going on this road trip to cross 50 states off my bucket list, and then I was going to calm down and be a real adult and go work in a cubicle like I was supposed to. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen.
I have never worked in a cubicle, but I'll tell you, working in an office, you have to get out sometimes. You just have to go outside, walk the neighborhood, at minimum. But as you wrap up, kind of what's next on your mind as you're wrapping this up?
Well, I feel really thankful that more opportunities have spiraled out of this road trip. It was stupid to think that I could leave on this road trip and just tell stories and then walk away and like just go back to normal life. Now I have true friends in all 50 states. I've got friends and family across the country. There's stories that I haven't even been able to tell yet, or landmarks I'd like to go back to, or things I'm curious about and want to learn more about. Organizations that have stepped up and helped me out, finding farmers last minute, or giving me a place to crash, or inviting me to have some speaking opportunities. And so I'm just going to see where that takes me, continue traveling. So when I get home at the end of May, I'm actually only going to be home for about a week before I go on my next little trip. My trips are going to be shorter and not as fast paced, but I've been bitten by the travel bug really bad, and I just can't get enough of these stories.
I admire you. I know I spent a year on the road myself with FFA. When I came home, I said, I'm ready to just be in one place for a while. So you've done it right. We got a good question here from Charles Wallace. He says, aside from Twitter, how else have you kept a sort of journal of your trip? So where can people go and kind of learn how you documented your trip?
Yeah, so I feel really bad. I've really slacked off on my personal blog, but I've posted some photos and some recaps there. I have a lot. I've been saving my drafts that are just like random thoughts right now because I don't have time to articulate them like I should or would like to. After the road trip, though, I'm going to take some time that week that I'm not traveling to just really debrief and reflect. I I do Snapchat. I guess that's a way to keep up with the road trip kind of live. That's kind of unfiltered. So,
I've watched your Snapchat.
um,
Your snaps have gotten like progressively more frequently. And oh no, is she getting lonely on the road? That Snapchat's like her go-to kind of place to journal.
I think it's just an awesome platform, and actually, a couple farmers that are awesome Snapchatters gave me a few shout outs, and so I got a following, and I just felt like I wasn't using that, and it's something I can do quick, while I'm waiting in line at Starbucks, or use fill a few minutes. And also my phone's memory is so full I can't take photos on my regular camera, so I take pictures on Snapchat, and I was like, I might as well be posting them. So
Yeah. No, we obviously, at grad, we love Snapchat. That's kind of where um, a lot of our interaction happens with folks in our community. Hey, really cool compliment here from a really cool farmer. Nathan Brown says, thank you for sharing so many stories about so many farmers. So you have a fan
oh,
in the chat room right now here, Nathan Brown.
thanks, Nathan. That means a lot. It's been so special to have really cheerleaders across the country, and so that really means a lot.
So a lot of college students would love to do what you do. It's, whether it's turned out this way or not, like it's perceived as sort of like a find yourself journey, as well as discover kind of the breadth of agriculture and just
Yeah.
do it in a cool way. Plus, I mean, you've been able to create some fantastic content, which I know there's a lot of people who are in college that would love to do that as well. What advice would you give to somebody who says, "Wow, that you're literally the only person I know that has done this"? What advice would you give to other people who would like to do it as well?
Um, Boy, I would make sure that your um, I don't know how to say this, but make sure that your priorities are right, and that means different things at different hours of the day. Um, but take time to get to know yourself, as that happens. Um, and take time to cherish the people that you meet along the way. Like that's really what has made this such an amazing experience for me. Even though I've, seen, I don't know, 25 or 50 different crops. And when I left, I thought that was one of the big goals, was to learn about all different kinds of agriculture. And that has happened naturally along the way. But what makes agriculture such an awesome community and what has made this road trip even possible is the people. And so if you just wham bam slam around the country, checking things off your to-do list and trying to live up to your spreadsheet, you're not going to get the most out of it, and in the end I don't think you're going to accomplish your goals in the right way. So maybe that's a little preachy, and maybe more what I needed to hear than advice someone else needs to hear, but yeah.
No,
That's my 2 cents.
I think it's fantastic advice. I really do. And I think that, especially the self-awareness piece you mentioned, everybody probably has their own path or their own journey to self-awareness. But, the reason why all advice can't really just be generic is because you have to know yourself and know what you need and what's right for you. And so self-awareness is fantastic advice to anyone. And I know you've had, just probably hundreds by now of stories from the road. Can you just pick maybe one or two to share with us before we wrap up here?
Sure. What kind of stories do you want? I've got
Well,
okay.
I've read them online, but you've shared some really powerful stories about these farmers that you're interacting
Yeah.
with. Anything, I'll leave it up to you.
Well, I'll share one farmer that just, and I'll try not to get emotional. But first of all, I just want to say it's been a privilege to literally laugh and cry with these people across the country. And I feel so privileged to hear their life story. I was telling someone the other day, it's kind of a wild feeling to meet someone for the first time in your life, and 10 minutes later, you're well on your way of knowing their life story. And that's really powerful. It's awesome to know that you've built that trust, and to know that they see what you're trying to accomplish and are willing to work with that, even though it's not always easy to talk about your failures, or when times were tough, or people who've passed on that are important to you. But they're willing to have those tough conversations for the sake of sharing agriculture story. But also, I know I'm privileged to hear some things that even their own family hasn't heard. And so in some ways, I mean, it's a good burden, but it's definitely something I don't take lightly. Like when I'm publishing some family story, you want to respect the emotions that they shared with you, but also stay true to their story and get it all out there. I think that's something we don't talk about in agriculture enough. I mean, we talk about success, and I've lost count of how many grown men that I guarantee you, and I'm going to try not to cry myself, but how many grown men I guarantee you, their kids haven't seen them cry like they do in front of me, or they've even sent their kids out of the room, or like giving them a chore, and then they just break down telling their story, and that's crazy powerful. I don't even know how to describe that to anyone, and I know that's not something that most people are willing to totally share. Like, I don't want to call those people out, but that's just a crazy powerful experience. And for me, one of those farmer stories that was emotional that I can share with you, a lot of times I ask the question, Mother Nature's challenging, markets can be challenging, even working with your own family can be challenging, and what keeps you from throwing in the towel when times get tough? And my friend Laura, a North Dakota farmer, she paused for a second. We were sitting in her kitchen, at her kitchen table, and she said, "Well, can I get up for a second?" I was like, "Yeah, we're in your own home, like feel comfortable." And she's like, I'm going to run and get something. And she ran to her bedroom and brought back this 8x10 photo. And she said, "I look at this twice a day. These are my grandparents. This is my grandpa when he was my age. And he came back from the war and started our farm with nothing. And by the time he passed on, there was something to pass on to me. But I know the blood and the sweat and the tears, the sacrifice, the time. I know what that took. And I want to be able to tell him, when we meet again, when my time as a farmer is over, I want to be able to tell him that I was a good steward too, that I took care of the land, that I knew what it cost, that I was willing to make those same sacrifices so that my children and grandchildren could have this way of life. And I don't know why that story in particular comes to mind so often. There's all kinds of stories of people that just pour their heart out, and I think that's so cool. And I think it would be awesome if, I know it's hard, but I think it would be awesome if more of us in agriculture allowed ourselves to be vulnerable like that and get that personal.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot, of hoopla if you look at Twitter or somewhere about the amount of ag blogs there are out there, the amount of ag podcasts out there. But I think there's so many stories like that still are going untold. There's so many great stories in this industry that hopefully AgGrad and Live Farm and other people can help to bring to light. But thank you so much, Natalina, you are our first ever guest on the show. And I didn't know how this was going to go, but I knew if I got somebody on like yourself that knew how to just improvise and roll with the punches, that it would work out great. And I think it has. How can people follow you on Twitter? Are you at Roots_Journey? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. That's my personal Twitter. So you can follow all my rants about how they spell my name at Starbucks and, whatever other side commentary gets thrown up there. And then the farmer stories that we're honoring are on Why I Farm. I have a personal blog, Roots Journey, that is kind of neglected, but there is a post planned for the next couple days. And then also the Why I Farm blog has those farmer stories. So
okay, and that's just whyifarm.com, right?
Yeah, that's the general website. If you put /blog, that'll take you directly the stories that I've been publishing, but there's great videos on that homepage that you'll go to as well.
Cool. Well, thank you very much. I definitely tuned into all of your stories and look forward to watching you as you finish out this trip. It's really, really cool. And thanks to those of you who have joined us on the live broadcast. If you still have questions for Natalina and you didn't make it to the live show, please reach out to her on Twitter or through her blog. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, she's extremely quick to reply on the road. I don't know how she does it, but she does. So anyway, thank you, Natalina, and we'll be back next week for another AgGrad Live.
Thanks for having me.